What's happening, guys? LightningSnow back today with another video. Today, I know y'all can probably see on the title and the thumbnail, I'm doing something completely different. I know I am a Naruto-based channel, but I have hinted here and there that I wanted to do other anime, and what better anime really to start off with than what I would consider the pinnacle of anime, at least as far as me. I think I'm pretty sure it's like one of the first, if not the first anime I ever got into, which is Dragon Ball. And today I have a guest to the channel, a completely new guest who is also a popular Dragon Ball video content creator. LaughingStock Media, go ahead and introduce yourself. Say hi to everybody.
Hey guys, it's Mike here from LaughingStock Media, and I'm really looking forward to discussing this topic here, and I can't wait to get into it.
So this guy threw me a bone. Like I shot that arc, messaged him, and he reached back out, and he's excited to do this one. So as you could tell, this is the Saiyan Saga that we're going to be talking about. Just kind of a brief conversation between me and Mike, just discussing what makes the Saiyan Saga such a great saga. Because I mean, this is like a explosion right out of the gate. So yeah, so like, I mean, without further ado, let's just get on into it. So I mean, going off from Dragon Ball, the kid show that we all grew up with watching, and I would be dishonest with myself if I said that like I remember everything from Dragon Ball, because if I'm going to be honest with you, I think Dragon Ball Z was the definitive experience of what anime was for me as a kid. As a kid, a 4 or 5 year old that couldn't really comprehend all what was going on. So like seeing something like a guy within a military uniform coming down on in a space pod, pretty much one shot in a human with a bullet from his thumb, definitely just kind of I don't know, it resonated me with as a kid. I was like, what the heck am I watching here? To me, I feel like that's just when Raditz comes down and just one shots our hero basically, and just introduces himself as this brand new species, and just name drops an expedition dump for Goku, telling him that he's not who he thinks he is. Kind of flips our world upside down from this franchise that we grew up on. I don't know, it's like the first 15 minutes of this episode completely just flips our world upside down. Mike, what do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Saiyan Saga is really the arc in which it totally changes up the overall story of Dragon Ball by shifting it not only in terms of the narrative but also the genre. Up until that point, Dragon Ball was starting out as a Journey to the West spoof, where it was basically Son Wukong, this time Son Goku, and his friends going on an adventure to find the Dragon Balls, then turning into the martial arts kind of based story, the mystical adventure with martial arts and powers, and then by the time of the Saiyan Saga, with the introduction of Raditz, Goku's long-lost brother and also evil, it ends up becoming, shifting into a science fiction and more wuxia and type of direction with action and almost like bordering on superheroes. So the thing is that the Saiyan Saga really not only was a massive subversion in many ways in terms of that, but also something that would kind of usher in the most popular portion of the Dragon Ball story, which really, a lot of people started out watching it first. But really, when you watch the original Dragon Ball first, or when you rewatch it going into that arc, everything is way better, because otherwise it's like, oh, well, Goku's the main character, I guess. Oh, these other people are his friends that are dying, I guess. But you don't have the attachment you do as if you watch the entire series leading up to that. And that's why the Saiyan Saga is kind of the culmination of that, and also the start of something new. It's great.
Yeah, and going on to that, because Raditz, when he comes down, he just kind of craps on the entire villain roster from Dragon Ball, with just one introduction, because this guy's completely different than any villain that, at least in terms of physical strength. Obviously, we've dealt with characters that are just as vile as Raditz is, but again, the first 5 minutes he's at Roshi's house, he just kind of, again, just craps on the entire villain roster from Dragon Ball. Even Piccolo, Piccolo was the main bad guy of the final arc of Dragon Ball, and like how many episodes it took Goku to beat this guy, and here comes this guy that just from space, randomly having a conversation with Piccolo, and Piccolo tries to obliterate him with one attack, and he singed his leg hairs. I'm pretty sure Raditz said something like that. So So like again, my mind was blown. I was like, what is Piccolo gonna do? Is Piccolo gonna get killed like right in the first episode of Dragon Ball Z? So and then going on to that, like the team up of Goku and Piccolo was definitely, like, I'm telling you, I get chills like every time I watch it now because full disclosure, Piccolo is my favorite character. So and I definitely appreciate the friendship now between Goku and Piccolo. I think it's one that a lot of people don't overthink, don't think about too much because it is kind of overshadowed by Goku and Vegeta, rightfully so. But I think it's important to recognize like where this friendship started, because it wasn't a friendship. It didn't start out as a friendship. It started out as enemies, deathly rivals to each other. But then, begrudging allies, and then eventually, because of Gohan, and I think like Piccolo gained a lot of respect for Goku, like sacrificing himself in the fight between Raditz, but not wanting to get too far into it first, but like that first fight with Raditz, though, when him and Piccolo had to team up, is, I don't know. Again, it just kind of, it left us on the edge of our seat because we haven't seen anything like Raditz prior to this. We're seeing two Titans that we grew up still watching having to fight this guy, and yet they're still struggling, even fighting together.
Oh yeah, it's really great. Toriyama has a way. Well, it's almost kind of like how they tell the story in professional wrestling. You have the new top bad guy who shows up, and the best way of cementing how powerful and how big of a threat he is to, well, take out either the most powerful hero, most powerful villain, or both at the same time. And that's something that happened with Raditz. And, so he makes both Goku and Piccolo seem weak by comparison, but Toriyama does a great thing there in terms of building up the story, in which he's able to do two massive things there also. Not only does Raditz exist to change the story to more of a science fiction base by introducing Goku's heritage and everything, but he is defeated by the main character and the main villain, with the main character dying, and not just that, but also, another really cool thing is that it also sets up Gohan as his hidden power and a character who may in the future be the new main character to kind of pass the torch from Goku onto him. And then at the same time, when Raditz finally does die, when he finally loses, well, we find out I have two other friends, and they're way more powerful than me. So it immediately gives everybody the impetus in order to train, to become even better, and then to, basically prepare for the even greater threat to come in the future. So I think it's just masterful storytelling, the entire arc.
Definitely. And, the fact that this is like the first time that Goku's, died, and it's like one of those things, like it really hits you, because again, like you said, I mean, if you were to tell me that Gohan was the secret main character all this time, especially when the Cell arc ends, not trying to get too much in the Cell arc yet, but, if you were to tell me that Gohan was actually the main character this entire time, I would have told you you're right. Like, the setup for him was totally built upon this arc because of that one scene. And so, I totally agree. Gohan's introduction was being a powerhouse was and it wasn't like anything that was pulled out of thin air too. Like, it seemed totally believable because of how mad he was getting, how desperate he was, and the fact that the power didn't stay. Like, it went away as soon as it came. So it gave you that hint, but it wasn't something that was overpowered. So and going on to Goku's training arc in the other world was awesome. I love King Kai. King Kai is definitely one of my favorite side characters. Someone that I really wish would get more screen time now, but I get like the whole, the power creep in Dragon Ball. It's a lot like other animes, unfortunately, but King Kai is definitely one of the ones that I feel like is one of my favorite teachers of Goku. So, and the Kai.
Yeah, that's the part that really actually got me into the story when I was a kid. The first episode of Dragon Ball Z that I saw was when Goku's training on the planet. So it's like just so how different it was from the world building, and this main character who is dead, and he's training in this like weird other realm where the sky is purple and the planet is really small, but it has 10 times gravity, and he's training this way, and it's like such a fascinating way to do things that I just was like, okay, I gotta watch this whole series now.
Yeah. And then the training for the Kaioken was, otherworldly at the time. It's kind of like the precursor to, the Super Saiyan power up that we would see later. But I do like how they implement it with a drawback. Oh yeah, I grant you this awesome power, but at the same time it tears your body to shatters. So I appreciated the balance of how the Kaioken works. And I know that the Super Saiyan transformation does come with some drawbacks. Some are different than others as far as losing a little bit of your personality, or getting a little bit more aggressive, maybe draining a little bit more energy, energy consumption. But it's definitely nowhere near as detriment as the Kaioken was. And I think that especially for this arc, because it's so people, I know that every arc has its desperate moments, but I feel like going on to the rest of this arc, it is ball to the wall desperate at any given moment. When it comes to the lesser characters fighting the Cybermen, who, yeah, they're kind of weak by comparison, but they also kind of just one shot Yamcha like it's nothing. So, and then going on to Nappa, the entire time I was left what's anybody gonna do? I'm thinking okay, Piccolo is the man now. He's got to do something against Nappa, spending all this time training, and here comes Nappa, literally just dog walking everybody.
Yeah, such an awesome fight. I mean, there's so much tension in that arc. It's just really amazing, and that's one of the things that really, unfortunately, modern Dragon Ball doesn't have as much of, because back then, not only was this all happening in, not a time skip, kind of like with Dragon Ball Super, where we don't know what's going to happen next. Literally the main character died in that arc. Everything is up for grabs at that point. And so it's not just that, but just the tension, everything. The guy who's weak compared to them, he loses, he lost and he died, but he took out the main character in the process, and almost the main villain too. And then the side, the mini boss basically kills every hero except for a couple, and then Goku still struggles, and Goku still loses when he fights against Vegeta in one of the most iconic fights in the franchise. So it's just so incredibly executed by Toriyama, which is why, when some people say that for them, the Saiyan Saga is the best arc, it's yeah, I could definitely understand the argument, because even though it's not my favorite, I could say that there are strong arguments for it being the best because of how Toriyama pulled it off.
It's whenever someone tells you that the Saiyan Saga is their favorite arc, it's one of those things when you're on the receiving end, you're you know what, I don't want to, you're almost you don't want to argue it, because you understand where they're coming from, why it means so much to them. And I totally agree. I remember watching it for the first time, and putting myself back into the shoes of the 5-year-old, 6-year-old me, having to wait week by week to see how this this epic saga ends, bro. Especially when you get to the Goku and Vegeta fight, that last. Right? And what I will say is that while I do love the fights in Namek and in the Cell and the Cell saga and whatnot, I feel like this final fight and then this saga means a little bit more because it's a team effort. At first it starts off with Goku and you think that it's just going to be Goku. But no, everybody that can get involved gets involved. Krillin, Gohan, even Yajirobe gets a moment to shine. And everyone's pulling out everything they have just to beat this one guy. And they almost lose. That's the kicker of it all, is they almost actually lose. So while the entire time, the one thing I feel like this arc has more than most arcs, I guess more in Super, not so much in Z, is tension.
Not just tension, Han.
Yeah, yeah. And not just because the Namek Saga definitely has tension, 100%. Cell Saga definitely has tension. Majin Buu Saga, it kind of falls off a little bit of the tension because things kind of just get, you got Goku coming back to life again, but it's I don't know, this arc finally introduced to me what tension felt like because of how desperate everyone was, being just to defeat this one guy, and especially when he went into the grade 8 form, it's what is he going to do? What are they going to do? And there's nothing they could do. So it's like, yeah, I don't mean to sound redundant, but I can't stress enough like how this cements a team effort. And I think this, to me, it personifies the Z fighters aspect. You know, the Z fighters are always a team and whatnot. I think this is a perfect representation of that.
Yeah, it's really well crafted in that sense, to where it isn't just a one-on-one fight for like the fate of the universe, like Goku versus Frieza eventually becomes, or you know, Gohan versus Cell to a lesser extent, because eventually it does require, you know, some aid from like Goku's guidance and Vegeta like firing the final shot. And in the anime, everybody's kind of teaming up a little bit, but in the Saiyan Saga, it's like, you know, Goku does what he can to weaken Vegeta, and then Yajirobe cuts off Vegeta's tail, and then Krillin throws a spirit bomb at Vegeta, but Vegeta dodges, you know, and then Gohan bounces it back at him. And then, you know, Gohan is the one who ultimately defeats Vegeta by falling on him after he's a grade 8. And then Krillin is the one who could kill him, but Goku allows him to live, you know. And because of that decision, we end up having one of the most popular characters in the franchise, who ultimately plays a massive role moving forward. So, yeah, it's just an excellently crafted final fight. The mini fights are great. Everything leading up to it, you know, is just really well handled. The building up of Gohan, the making Piccolo more sympathetic, and, you know, seeing his humanity, and then him sacrificing himself, basically the devil, the evil equivalent of Kami, the god of the earth, you know, sacrificing himself for the child of his arch enemy. And yeah, it's just so really well told. So at the end of the day, for me, I could see why so many people be like, this is the best final fight. This is the best tension and stakes and the best arc and everything, because, you know, it doesn't really have those fall-offs like you could argue that Namek does with Buu Saga. It doesn't have as many plot holes as Cell Saga, for instance, or anything like that. It's just a really well, tightly crafted arc that works great.
So, real quick, you know, if you had to pick a spotlight for this arc that you would cement as like your favorite part of this arc, what would you say, you know, on top of your head?
Training of Goku on King Kai's planet, that's the thing that pulled me in. And really the training of all the characters. I love seeing all the human characters training on Kami's lookout. I love seeing Gohan and Piccolo in their training, and them, you know, growing closer as friends. And Goku training and getting all these new techniques in this really interesting world. And, you know, just him going to the afterlife and the whole introduction of those concepts, really excellently done. So for me, it's really kind of the build-up. Whereas the fights are also amazing, but yeah, I mean, it's so hard to choose one, but I love that kind of really well done build-up and training that then in turn leads to the climax of the ultimate battles that are to unfold.
For sure, that's a good pick. I probably would go, me personally, as I've just become a Piccolo fan, that sacrifice, I don't think like as a kid, I don't know, that broke me, bro. That's like, cause like that's like the last thing you expect from Piccolo. Even though like you saw their friendship grow, and it's like Piccolo wouldn't sacrifice himself though. It's like he's too selfish for that. Even if he is growing like a friendship with Gohan, and you know, looking back at it, I think, you know, a line that's iconic to me comes before that, and it's, you know, Gohan pretty much saying like, you're part of the family now. It's like, I don't know, to me that means so much to me, because you know, Piccolo's my favorite character, and you know, you look back, you know, going fast forwarding to Super all these years later, it's literally as if Piccolo is part of the family. So,
yeah,
I just enjoy that scene with him sacrificing himself. I think I was brought to tears more so in that one than I was with Goku's death from Raditz. I gotta be honest with you, like, yeah, like it sucked and it was a complete like mind shatter because that had never happened before. But at the same time, you know, I knew he was gonna get wished back. It's like one of those things, but I knew Piccolo would too. But because he's linked to the Dragon Balls, there's a little bit more like desperation in his death. And like there was a part of you that felt like, okay, this is actually happening, you know. And his line with, you know, before he passes on, it, you know, the only one that's called me a friend. I want to get teary-eyed, but no, that moment for me, definitely, I think, just when I think of the Saiyan Saga, I think that's, you know, one of the scenes that pops into my head like the most. Obviously, spectacle-wise, the Gallic Gun Kamehameha beam struggle that would go on to be the pinnacle of what beam struggles could be in Dragon Ball. Definitely iconic. So what would you say, like, wrapping up, like, what would you say, like, the impact that this arc has on both the franchise and anime in general? Because I think it has a strong impact on both, if I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah, this is one of the most iconic arcs in the history of the medium. Anime, manga, everything along those lines. In terms of Dragon Ball, it fundamentally changed everything moving forward. It introduced one of the most popular characters. It introduced Goku's newfound heritage of being a Saiyan. It set up everything going into space with the introduction of science fiction elements, power levels, beam struggles being even more emphasized than they were in even like the 23rd tournament, for instance, and really kind of moving everything in the direction that Dragon Ball would become known for and would set the stage and also define every single thing moving forward in the story after that. Every single arc, for the most part, would reference that particular arc, that particular fight between Goku and Vegeta again and again and again and again. And so too would other anime. I mean, how many characters in anime are massively influenced by Vegeta, for instance, or, well, of course, Goku or Piccolo? There are so many characters that, basically take inspiration from Gohan, being that archetypal character of the hidden power that is released through his rage or his emotions. And then, of course, everything with the power levels aspect that people to this day still scream, either the manga and Kai version, it's over 8,000 or it's over 9,000. There's so many different ways that this arc just rippled throughout fiction media and led to just tons of people being inspired, kind of like in the way that a Star Wars did, or Lord of the Rings, something like that, that just blew people's minds and opened them up and led to like a revolution in the industry and beyond. So yeah, it has a gigantic influence.
I don't think I could have even said it better myself, honestly, because, like, I totally agree, and I'm putting myself in the shoes of, again, like, my 5-year-old, 6-year-old me, and even if I were to rewatch it now, like, again, like, I don't think there's, any low points in this arc. I think, for me, when I rewatch it, I remember why Dragon Ball is the show that I grew up by. I mean, if I really had to think about it, like, I don't really know if this was the first anime that I got into or that I watched, for the first time, but I can definitely tell you that this was the one that I stuck with consistently. Most kids don't stick with like a series because they're, the retention rate's not all there, but when you make a series that the kids will literally, make sure that the TV is on, like that Toonami is on to air, and that they're sitting in front of the screen to make sure they don't miss an episode. I think like you cemented, and I know friends of mine that have kids now that they want to make sure that they watch Dragon Ball, before, when they're young. I'm like, okay, these parents are doing it right. So, yeah, I agree. I think the impact that it has on anime is, beyond words to me. I think that for me, I don't think a lot of animes today would exist without this one. So that's gonna do it. This was a really ambitious video for me. Like I said, I know I'm a Naruto-based video, but I do want to start doing Dragon Ball because it's just as dear to me as Naruto is. Thank you, Mike, for being on the channel. I really appreciate having you on here.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was awesome, and I can't wait to see you do even more content about Dragon Ball in the future.
If you guys have not subscribed to him, if you are a fan of Dragon Ball and you want to see more content, please go watch his videos on his channel. He makes some great Dragon Ball content, a lot of what-if scenarios, a lot of versus battle videos and whatnot. I watched it, told him like I wanted to have him on the second I saw his Piccolo versus 17 video specifically. Make sure you go watch that out. That one's a great video. I'll leave a link for his channel in the description below. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned. Until my next one, LightningSnow out.